Yes. Would like to call to order the October 2nd, 2017 Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners work session. Welcome, everyone. First up is approval of our work session agenda, which you all have in front of you. And do I hear a motion to approve the agenda, including the changes on page 59? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Thank you. And before we begin discussion, I'm going to turn the microphone over to the county manager for a couple of introductions.
Okay, Ms. Dubois is going to introduce, and Ben Rose will have someone to introduce as well. We got some new additions to staff, and we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to meet them, but then also the public can put a face with a name as they start calling into the office.
This is our new Veterans Services Director. He started last Monday, and today he went through orientation, had his first event, and I'll let him tell you a little bit about that on Sunday, so he's already active in the field.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jay Wood, and I am privileged to be the new Director of Veteran Services here for Cabarrus County. So thank you very much for that opportunity. And as Pam said, we hit the ground running. Yesterday, we had a very nice event in Kannapolis. It was for the veterans called Because You Serve. We had about 84 contacts, and I was just in the office following up on some of those when Pam came and got me for this meeting. So thank you for letting me be here. I appreciate it.
And Jay's retired Air Force.
I am.
So he and Kristen have some stories to share together.
Good.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Privileged to introduce to you Keith Moon. And no, he's not the dead drummer from The Who, as he hears about every time we introduce him. But Keith is retired from Gaston County. He was their director for about 14 years, I believe. I've known Keith a long time. I've been a director here in North Carolina since 1991. And he came from Ohio, where he retired from there and had a few director jobs as well, too. But he is our interim director as I'm moving on after tomorrow to Durham County. So Keith is going to help keep the ship steady until a new director is in place, and I think you will enjoy working with him. He's a wonderful fellow, so I'll let him introduce himself.
Thank you, Ben. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm happy to be here with you and hope to be able to keep the ship afloat and steered in the right direction for the foreseeable future. And I'm certainly willing and able to help you with hiring a new director as expeditiously as we can. So I look forward to working here. You're losing an asset with Ben. He's very well regarded among the directors and the professional staff in the state. So I'm just delighted to be here. Thank you. Please contact me anytime.
Great.
Welcome. It's good to have you and Mr. Wood both with us. It's with mixed emotions that we say goodbye to Ben Rose. He's done a wonderful job here, and it's been a pleasure both as a colleague and as a friend and a fellow Rotarian and a lot of other connections. But I think the reason that Durham County is taking advantage of our misfortune is fortune for them. We were in Durham County for our North Carolina Association of County Commissioners meeting this summer, and I think we bragged on things so much now we're having to pay the price. But wish you well.
Thank you.
In the future, and look forward to encountering you again, and look forward to working with you, Mr. Moon.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for all that you do for this community.
Right.
It's a hard decision to leave, so
Well,
thank you for the kind words.
Best wishes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to discussion items for today. First up, 3.1. We are happy to have Jody Ramirez with us today to give us an update on the Mental Health Advisory Board.
Good afternoon, and thank you for giving me a few minutes to bring you up to speed on what's been going on. Since January, we have developed a 25-member Mental Health Advisory Board of executive-level members from local government, Health and Human Service, EMS, the hospital, law enforcement, the courts, our education system, our emergency department, and local behavioral health service providers. The advisory board developed a mission statement to guide us, which is the Cabarrus County Mental Health Advisory Board engages in the community to promote the highest level of mental health for all. That's kind of our guiding mantra for the board and the task force. The advisory board also worked together to develop a 40-plus member mental health task force that comprises 3 different work groups to address the immediate challenges felt for individuals who suffer from mental illness. The focus of the 3 work groups are our access to resources and care, whose goal is to identify available, accessible, and acceptable mental health services and resources in Cabarrus County. Crisis response and alternate destinations, whose goal is to identify, evaluate, and assess gaps in care to create an informed referral process to connect individuals with an appropriate service. And our public awareness work group, whose goal is to reduce the stigma of mental illness through the community-wide education and the development of materials to promote services and support advocacy. The task force members requested support in knowing more about the difference in mental health versus mental illness, how to speak to someone that may show signs of mental illness and co-occurring mental illness and substance use. So we brought in Mental Health America, our local United Way agency, a member of our local United Way agency who provided a foundation for us to have in our work group, just given the words of what to say and what not to say. EMS has also shared their vision of a service arm to the community paramedic program that works with individuals discharged from the hospital who have a diagnosis of mental illness. We are also following a parent's story in which a member of our community who does have insurance and is seeking help for one of his children is showing signs of noncompliance and has turned to any agency that can help, including law enforcement, juvenile services, Daymark, social services, and Amazing Grace Advocacy. I speak with this father almost every other week just to see what's going on now, and continue. He has a lot of support from our community to see this through. Our public awareness work group is working diligently on promoting the mental health first aid training throughout the county, as well as other social media campaigns that could provide effective awareness. We have 3 more trainings planned for this year. The county has provided training for their directors, and the City of Concord is trying to plan one for their directors as well, and several of you around this table have participated in that campaign. We have a crisis response work group that is identifying alternative destinations other than the ER or the jail that can help with an assessment and treatment following a 911 call that may involve someone with a mental health crisis. Lastly, our Access to Resources and Care work group is developing a small pamphlet-sized booklet of local resources that we want to pilot with law enforcement and EMS that they can provide on their calls to service to individuals seeking care following an emergency response. The booklet contains relevant information for individuals who are looking for resources and treatment and support. This booklet would be customized to Cabarrus County and is a free offering from SAMHSA, which would give us 500 free booklets, and if it's something that we find successful, we want to look into investing in more of those. Overall, the Mental Health Advisory Board members within their own agencies have begun to develop programs that will address the need for better services for those living with mental illness. The hospital and EMS are working on a navigator that assists with better flow of information to help individuals with mental illness receive more comprehensive follow-through care after they are discharged. The Sheriff's Administration and Detention Center is working on implementing the national initiative of Stepping Up, a program that identifies individuals in the detention center who need case management upon release to make sure they are properly assessed and seeking treatment. We are currently working with Daymark to identify a case manager that will help continue to develop the assessments, policy, and management of those being released from the detention center. That's a lot, but we feel really good about what's going on every month in the task force meetings and our quarterly advisory board meetings, that everybody is doing the best they can to keep this in front of the community. So, Mike, do you have any?
Yeah, I can add too. Again, this has been, as Jody said, this has been very successful. In fact, most committees where you guys are having to advocate every month to get people to join the committees. This one here, we're actually having to limit the membership because there's so many people that are wanting to come on. And thus, therefore, we've increased or added the task force and brought in even more people. And there's still phone calls coming in that would like to participate somehow because they hear and they see it in the paper. So we're going to maintain that. But the other measure of success from the committee's level or from the advisory board's committee, the advisory board's level, is that on the first meeting, we weren't quite sure how many were going to show up and then how many were going to join, and everyone that showed up joined. And now even over a year into it, when we close the meeting, the conversations don't stop. There are still small groups standing around the room. We have to tell them to leave sometimes. So it's really good. And to add some other stuff that's going on, Jody touched on quite a few of them, but you, the board here, funded mental health responders in the school system. And you heard at the last meeting how successful that program is moving along, and hope to enhance that even more. Community meetings, the Sheriff's Office has started community meetings. They've held two, one in Mount Pleasant and one in Harrisburg, on just awareness of the opioid issue and why is it, what's happening, who's involved, and how do we hope to combat that. And both of those meetings were very successful, well attended, and with efforts to continue that on around the county. So I encourage anybody that hasn't been to one, please attend. The Sheriff's Department is looking to expand potentially, and all the 911 centers are looking to increase awareness with their medical responders on the 911 center to include mental health response as well. So that's in the making as well. Crisis intervention, all of the law enforcement agencies in the county have participated in that, are now certified. Mental health training, as Jody said, there's representatives from all groups and all areas of the community that are participating in that. This board here held the leadership summit on mental health awareness and opioids, and that was hugely successful as well. That included all the law enforcement, all elected officials in the county, mental health providers, educators, and even more, and very good conversations there with some recommended actions coming out of that. Cardinal Innovations, I don't know if Reed's here tonight or not, but they're actually, they see that this is a problem as well. They're moving forward with their strategic plan, mental health and substance abuse treatment strategic plan, so that they can focus some of their services and help their clients as well. Law enforcement, you can see in the newspaper every day they're increasing their enforcement as well as resulting in arrest in the substance abuse or the opioid areas. Law enforcement agencies are collaborating locally as they have, but even enhanced around some of these issues, and now they're advocating on a statewide as well throughout the Sheriff's Association and the municipal law enforcement associations. We've brought the Magistrate's Office. Why they weren't involved in from the very beginning, we don't remember why we didn't include them, but they are a very important part of the, because they're the ones that see most of the involuntary commissions before anybody sees them, and they've got to understand what's going on. And then also those who are making those requests for commitment need to know the information that the magistrates need in order to make a good decision on that. The exchange exchanges at the all of the law enforcement locations, the Sheriff's Department.
Health Alliance.
Health Alliance, oh, that's right.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
the take-back, the
That's right.
medicine take-back boxes are on all the law enforcement agencies.
Right, yeah. And then, of course, I know our community outreach department has really enhanced what we're sending out, and so are the other municipalities now that this is moving on. So thank you as a board for recognizing that this is an important issue. And again, thank you for continuing to support us as staff and the rest of the community to let us continue to broaden this program out. So just wanted to give you guys an update of what's going on in the community that's listening on TV as well, that our elected officials understand that mental health and opioids are a very important issue, and they're also putting their efforts financially and personally in in the process of hoping to improve that and making sure that we reduce those numbers in our county for the future. So, and we'll be glad to answer any other questions that you may have.
All I can say is I attended the training seminar along with Jody, and it was a long day, but it was very informative, and it was turned into a lot of fun as well. But we took home a lot of information, didn't we, Jody?
Yeah.
We did, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Any other questions? As you can tell by Jody's comments and Mike's as well, it's been a very active group. I have attended all those quarterly sessions. I think Commissioner Poole has as well. And you know, one of the things that we as a board have talked about consistently over the past several years is collaboration, and Mike used it in his comments several times, but the level of collaboration that you see amongst these different agencies, different municipalities, is pretty amazing. When we have those quarterly advisory board meetings, just about, I mean, it's the number of agencies that are representative is very impressive, and I think that you can study this all you want to, and you can hear all the information and the statistics about it, but when you have a parent like we had at our last meeting to be willing to stand up and share their personal story, that this is not something that happened to them in the past, this is something that they're in the middle of right now. It really brings it home as to what a serious problem this is, and hopefully something that we can have a positive impact on. So thank you, Mike, for leading this. Thank you, Jody, for your leadership. I think that we're going to see I think we've already seen some very good results, and we'll see more as we go forward. So thank you.
I do want to thank everybody, because having that advisory board created, we have the leadership at the table, so there isn't anybody that has to say, I got to go back and ask my boss. We've got the bosses at the table. So we've got buy-in right that evening, basically. And our agenda, our last agenda really proved healthy, because it was everybody reporting out. We have Chief Gasek, who is on the North Carolina Chiefs of Police Mental Health Advisory Board, and he's trying to direct, you know, the work that's being done there, and so it's something that can really impact our county from his standpoint. But the hospital's reporting on the numbers, and Daymark, and the Substance Use Task Force. Everybody's kind of being accountable of what role do they play and how can they help. And then we have our task force members, who are the boots on the ground, the number won't stop there. If they want to be involved, we'll plug them in, because there's just more hands for us to go and do what we need to do. So I do appreciate the support from this board.
Great. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have item 3.2, an video update from the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. It appears that we have a technical expert in the audience to make that happen. And we appreciate that.
Thank you. It's truly an honor to stand before you as president. As I plan for this coming year, it is clear that there is much to be done to continue the great work of this association. Together, we'll make it a great year, one for the history books. You know, as I said before, my goal as president is to make this a very eventful year, and I believe we're off to a good start. This is a historic moment for our association because it's the first time we have ever held a board meeting outside the state of North Carolina.
Actually thinking together as one state, as 100 counties, working together from across, from east to west, from the mountains to the sea.
And I think it's important that we've given our lobbying staff a clear direction of where we want to go and what we want them to relay to the General Assembly, because that's what they do for us, is talk to the General Assembly members. And after this process, I think they have a very clear direction on where we want to go as an association.
At approximately 10:15 p.m. on Thursday, March 16th, fire broke out at a construction site adjacent to the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners offices located in the Albert Coates Local Government Center and the Quorum Center in Wake County. Local leaders in our areas, in our different counties, we owe it to our citizens to become involved in this process. And we as an association here, and I as the president, have initiated a forum, a leadership forum, that we're going to take to each one of the counties. Association of County Commissioners. When I was elected in August of this past year, I chose as my initiative mental health, substance abuse, with an emphasis on the opioid epidemic.
The state legislature adjourned its 2017 session in the early morning hours of Friday, June the 30th. But with plans to return sooner than is typical. I mean, normally they wouldn't come back until next spring for a short session.
I told the folks in the General Assembly, I said, if you want to see how an organization should work that's made up of Democrat and Republican, see the association.
because we do that job, and we do it very well, and we do it every time we meet. I've learned that if you've got to be able to laugh, and you've got to be able to laugh at yourself. Nothing's so serious that you can't laugh.
Kevin, thanks so much for joining us today.
Great. I thought you were going to say something else. Okay.
Hugh, thanks for joining us today. What are the new developments happening at the General Assembly this week?
You're not Sarah. You're not Sarah. What is this? I can't do this.
So, Hugh, how's it going?
It's good. It's good. We're.
Hey, Stan.
What are you doing out there?
It's kind of cold, isn't it?
You want to come back?
Come on.
This is Fred McClure, your president. Let's start that one over. This is NCACC President Fred McClure. Welcome. I can't even start now.
You can keep up to date on county issues by visiting our website at www.ncacc.org, following us on Twitter, or by downloading our county app. What is it? I don't even know what this thing is.
Have you never seen the
No.
app? Getting a final vote in the Senate sometime Friday morning.
Let's start with that first question.
You jerk! That was perfect.
I know it was. The problem is that you leaned forward and went out of focus. So.
Well, that's my fault. I'm the jerk then.
I cannot believe this. Y'all have got to be kidding me, but you're not getting it back.
Jeez. You know, between you and Noah, it's pretty slim pickings up here.
If you weren't sure, Jeanette didn't know she was getting the award tonight.
That's about the brightest light I believe I have ever seen in my entire life.
All right, we got that right.
No, that was practice.
Okay. As I looked at that video and the various events that the association has had throughout the year, I think that one or all of our 5 commissioners have been involved in just about all of those. So we certainly appreciate your involvement on a statewide level, leading us forward. So now we'll move to discussion items for action at our October 16th meeting. And first up is 4.1, request funding for local positions based on the state salary match. And Pam Dubois will tell us about that.
Each year, the school systems in the community college propose to match the salary increases for their local positions. We have incorporated in our per pupil amount for the school system, so they will no longer be coming before you with this request. But the community college still has this particular request for their local positions. The request is for $15,912. I dropped 38 cents when I did the budget revision. $10,158 of it is for salary increases for 4 staff members at 100%, 5 staff members at 50%, and 1 staff member at 25%. There's also FICA associated with that. $3,067 is for retirement, and the remaining is for paid health insurance. We do this, like I said, every year to match the state-funded positions, and this is the local money to bring them up to the same level of funding that was provided and voted on by the state budget. So we have a budget revision for your approval at the regular board work session in order for us to be able to increase this funding to them for this fiscal year.
Okay, is that, is that something we can act on in our regular meeting, or did you need?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Any questions for Pam? All righty, thank you. We move to 4.2 from DHS, fiscal year 19-5307 urbanized area funding, and we are happy to have Bob Bushy with us today.
Thank you. The 5307 grant is a new grant to us. This is the federal grant now that we are a large urban system. We have some money that we're in the process of collecting from FY14 until now. This grant is for FY19. The state has now taken over the administration of this grant. They have informed us for FY19 we can replace 2 of our vehicles, but it has to be through the federal grant instead of the 53 as we usually do. So this grant for FY19 is for 2 replacement vehicles. It does require a public hearing and a resolution adoption. However, the public hearing, they will allow us to do 1 public hearing for this grant as well as our 5311. It is a 20% match. I do apologize. I noticed that I put a 25% number in here, but the match should actually be $19,200 for that grant.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Bushy? I think that, that the public sometimes might question, so why are you using this money for 2 new vehicles instead of expanding the services of your existing vehicles?
Well, we're actually not getting 2 new vehicles. We're replacing 2 vehicles that have met their useful life.
And I guess part of my question was, is this grant specifically earmarked for those purposes, or do we have flexibility in how we use it?
It is a capital grant.
Right,
It
so
must be
we
used to either
cannot
purchase.
use it to expand services.
Right.
We can only use it to maintain the fleet of vehicles.
Correct.
Right.
Or
that's-
maintenance cost.
Right, right.
Which we're using some money from 14 for maintenance. The reason we're using 19 money for vehicles is because they will not cover vehicles in the 5311 grants. So each year, we're just gonna have to shuffle depending on where the need is.
Right. Well, and I think sometimes the public do. I mean, you and I have a meeting with the group tomorrow afternoon to talk about some of those things. So that's one of those questions I think that come up. So we also have you down for and did you cover the 5311?
This is the 5311 grant. There's 2 parts to that grant. There's the administrative. This is the grant we receive every year. The amount for that has not changed. This grant covers some salaries, some other administrative costs such as uniforms, part of our building rental. It's not allowed to be used for operating either. It can only be used for administrative. There is a capital portion of that. This year, we are going to use that for tablets because they will not let us use it for vehicles. That's why we're having to use the 5307. In 2010, we purchased Ranger computers for our vehicles through the ARA stimulus grant that the president put out. And at the time, that was what everybody was using. And those are hard mounted into the vehicles and wired in the vehicles and antenna. Since that time, the tablets have become popular, and we actually, several years ago, got 4 tablets. These are not wired in. You can take them out and move them from bus to bus. It's just it makes more sense. The Rangers, when they break down, you have to send them to Canada because that's where the manufacturer is. The tablets, if they break down, we just go down to the wireless store. So what we're asking is for 22 tablets to replace the Rangers in our vehicles now that they've met the useful life. And that comes out to a cost of $8,750 with a local 10% match of $875. When we submit the grant, the state may give us all 22. They may give us 10, or they may give us 0. But we are trying to replace all of the Rangers in the vehicles.
It sounds like we would save on some maintenance costs on those tablets as well, huh?
Oh, yes, because when we send one back to Canada, well, even if you put the cost aside, they're gone for 2 months at the best. There's a lot of paperwork you have to do to get it across the border. We've had them come back broken from transit before.
Right, and both of these requests require public hearings at our regular meeting?
They do all require a public hearing, but as I said, the state has allowed us, it's your choice, you can have a separate public hearing for each one, but they will allow us to have one public hearing for all of them.
Okay, very good. Any questions for Mr. Bushy? All righty, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up from Planning and Development, Soil and Water Conservation District Board, Farmland Preservation Grants. We're happy to have Daniel McClellan with us.
Good afternoon. Each year, the North Carolina Department of Agriculture allows each qualifying entity that holds conservation easements to apply for a state agriculture development and farmland protection, which is buying the development rights on farms, working farms. And to date, we've applied for the we have three grants that have closed through this program that have protected farmland, and we have another one that's in the works right now. So altogether, we have 307 acres of protected farmland in the county that has gone through this program. Usually what we do or have done in the past is we have asked for 25% from the state through this, through a state grant, and then 50% from the federal government. They will match it or double it, and then the landowner donates their 25%, making 100% for the buying of the development rights. So at our September board meeting, our board, Soil and Water District Board, asked that we try to pursue 2 this year. As of right now, I only have one farmer that is interested, that we applied for the state grant last year and didn't get funded, so he wants to apply again, and I'm working with another guy that's interested, not so sure. So we may not have but 1, but possibly 2. And I guess what I'm asking is just for authorization to move forward in pursuing these grants for the state funding and the federal funding if we get approved.
Okay. Questions for Mr. McClellan? I think last year we got a little twisted up on one of them, that we had to put in some additional cash at the end. Have we taken steps to prevent that from happening again?
I'll help him with this one because I was more involved with that part of it than Daniel was at the time. That one got a little strung out over the years, longer than is typical. And in the process, we had reevaluation of the property, which increased the value. We are working now to keep that time period closer. I can't guarantee that it'll never happen again, but we're going to do our best to keep those moving and tighter on our schedule rather than having them open several years, which is kind of where that one got off course, I think.
Okay. And so there's no guarantee that the state will come forth with the grant, so that could, we got one that's already stretched out a year, it could go further, huh?
What ends up stretching them sometimes is if when we go after, once we get the approval for the state money and you go after the federal money and getting everything lined up, in that particular case, there were some legal issues that had an impact on it and stretched it out further.
Right.
We have taken steps moving forward with establishing a critiquing model for the different applications that we get to try to reduce items that we found in the past. We've learned some things now that we've been doing this several years, and some things in the past that have come up, we've kind of said, okay, maybe that's not a desirable product that we want to work on. So we're starting to decide, based on that model, what's a better project and what's not so great a project to move forward.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we move to 4.5, and we're glad to have Kelly Sifford already at the table to talk about the home program.
Yes, this is actually just simply a housekeeping issue. We got some program income. The program income is required to be put back into the program. So the $7,200 that we received as a payoff on another job is being added back into the funding. It will be paid out first as required on the Prosperity Ridge project as soon as we get our first bill for that. And this, like I said, is purely housekeeping.
Okay. Right. Any questions for Kelly? Okay, thank you. Next, we have 4.6, Planning and Development, proposed text amendment to zoning ordinance, and we're happy to have Susie Morris to talk to us about that.
Good afternoon. We have two text amendments on the agenda this afternoon. The first one is a proposed amendment to Chapter 4 of our zoning ordinance. This is an amendment to the overlay districts, and what it would do is we currently have buffer requirements on our perennial streams as well as our intermittent streams. This would remove the language that requires the buffers on the intermittent streams and ponds that are not located along those streams. It would also maintain a wetland buffer. Currently, that buffer is determined based on a calculation. So it would still protect the perennial streams, any ponds or impoundments located along the perennial streams, as well as the wetlands. And this is proposed. We are finding that a lot of older lots that are out there prior to when the language was adopted in the ordinance, when the reservoir came into play, essentially there's a lot of lots that are not buildable by the time you take the buffers and add them in based on the lot size that was allowed back then. So hopefully, and this is along the same lines as the other amendments that we've submitted, this would allow some flexibility to those non-conforming lots that are out there. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, questions for Susie? Okay, and then I think we have another one.
And the second one that we have is really more of a housekeeping issue. If you remember, I think about 1.5 or 2 years ago, we had to go in and we had to revamp our sign ordinance. These are some remnants of that ordinance that are in Chapter 3. It still talks about standards for signs based on it being a commercial business. So what that would do, this would remove the line items and the based on standards, and it would simply direct the reader to Chapter 11, which is where the sign standards are. So this would be an amendment to the text in Chapter 3 and also to the table in Chapter 3. But again, it's not really a typo, it's just more of a clarification and removing that language to direct them to the chapter that talks about those specific signs now, the temporary signs. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions on that one? We talked about this pretty extensively.
Correct.
Some time ago. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we move to item 4.8, solid waste, ordinance acknowledging solid waste collection. Kevin Grant and Kyle Billifer. And I didn't finish reading that long title. I'm sure you'll explain.
Yes. Good afternoon. Back in July, we presented the results from the RFP for the solid waste collection and disposal franchise bid that we put out. Big portion of it is to collect trash and recyclables curbside for unincorporated residents in Cabarrus. It also pertains to disposal for waste that we receive at the C&D landfill up on Irish Potato Road. as well as disposal options and capabilities for Kannapolis, Midland, Mount Pleasant, and Harrisburg. And back in July, we did show you all the bid result numbers with the recommendation that we went with Republic Services. So tonight, we are presenting the ordinance that grants this franchise to Republic Services. And I believe there should be a supplemental attachment that has the contract. I'm not sure if you all did receive that. Okay, it should be out. I got an unsigned one that was finalized on Friday. A signed one we did receive this morning. So if you don't have it, we'll make sure you get it out here.
That's it.
There it is, yep. You've seen that all too well, haven't you, over the past couple of weeks?
Yes, our county attorney has been through this several times. We've been back and forth with Republic on it.
And it's greatly appreciated. So with that, with this being a franchise, the North Carolina General Statutes states that no ordinance making a grant renewal, extension, or amendment of any franchise may be finally adopted until it's been passed at 2 regular meetings of the Board of Commissioners. No such grant, renewal, extension, or amendment may be made except by ordinance. So this is what we're presenting. This would be the first reading of the ordinance granting this franchise to Republic Services. So we'll be at the formal meeting in a couple weeks where we are going to present that.
And you'll have to read that as the first public hearing of it. And then again, we'll be back the month after.
Okay. And then back in July, I think we were showing the different pricing options, and one big change is going to be the fact that we are going to be charged $37 a ton for residential waste that we receive at our C&D landfill. I worked with Republic, and they're going to push back that fee until July 1st of 2018, so that does give us a chance to look at our fee schedule and make any adjustments accordingly. That material or that residential waste that folks bring us, we do charge a fee for. We do give a discount for recycling, and that fee is used to cover that cost. So we're going to look back to see what we're going to have to do, and obviously there will be a fee increase. We just don't know what it's going to be at this time.
So to clarify, what we charge now covers us transporting in the fuel and the wear and tear on the vehicle, but we weren't paying any tipping fees, so now we are going to be. So we're probably in the next 3 months, we'll be back up here talking about the actual fee schedule.
Okay, questions for Mr. Grant or Mr. Billifer? Okay, thank you. Between now and then, we'll figure out how much of this do we have to read. It's quite lengthy.
I'm sure Mr. Cook can help you with that.
Yes, thank you. Okay, next up is item 5, and that would be approval of the regular meeting agenda on page 54, and you all have a copy of that. Does anyone see any adjustments that need to be made to that agenda? Okay, I am not aware of any, so at this time I would entertain a motion that we approve the regular meeting agenda, including the public hearings, as presented. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. We do have need of a closed session tonight. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session per North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A3, 4, and 5 for the discussion of pending litigation, economic development, and personnel matters. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, this says 3, 4, and 6, and you said 3, 4, and 5.
You are correct.
Okay.
So that motion should be amended to read North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A3, point 11A, 3, 4, and 6. Okay, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. And we are now in closed session. Thank you.